Ash stopped by the store to stock up on groceries. Suddenly, the news announced that the number of people infected with an unknown virus was growing every day. Having bought everything he needed, he went down to the parking lot to put everything in the car. Sometime later, the hero was heading home, arguing with his fiancée on the phone. Suddenly, a dark shadow appeared on the road, which he did not immediately notice. The next moment, the car collided with the powerful body of some animal. Ash began to brake sharply. When the car stopped, he looked in the direction where the animal had flown off, and he saw that the goat he had hit was slowly getting back on its paws. The guy didn't understand how he managed to survive with a crushed head and even move on his own. A couple of seconds later, the goat, as if nothing had happened, headed towards the bushes. Ash watched carefully as the animal disappeared into the dense vegetation. An hour later, he arrived home. After parking the car, he began to take out all his purchases. Suddenly, his younger sister called out to him, running as fast as she could towards her brother. Coming closer, she said that she would help him carry the bags. Ash handed her the lightest of them, took everything else, and they headed towards the house, discussing the upcoming dinner. The hero was happy to see Anna so joyful. Sometime later, the food was ready, and the girl was wolfing down the pie, praising her brother's culinary skills. She suddenly looked up from her food and pointed towards the window. Ash turned, wondering what could have interested her so much. When he saw what was happening on the street, he suddenly stood up from his seat. An unexpected eclipse turned day into night. A few moments later, the power went out. Anna didn't understand why it became dark and terribly cold. She was frightened by what was happening. Meanwhile, Ash ran out onto the porch, not believing that what was happening was real. When he got outside, snowflakes were falling on him. The hero decided to go out on reconnaissance, taking his faithful dog with him, despite the fact that a snowstorm was beginning. At some point, a blinding radiance began to emanate from the darkened sun. Everything seemed suspiciously strange to Ash. The unusual eclipse, the snow in the summer, the animal's behavior. Suddenly, Charlie started barking furiously. In the first seconds, he did not understand what caused the dog's sudden aggression. But hearing the clatter of hooves behind him, he turned around. Seeing a bull rushing towards him, he instantly dodged, and Charlie rushed at the maddened beast. Ash remembered that he had left his bow nearby and ran to look for it. A few seconds later, he noticed a weapon on a nearby stump. Meanwhile, the bull managed to throw Charlie off himself, throwing him into the snow. The hero managed to get to the bow, and now he was aiming at the animal, hoping to kill it with one shot. As soon as he took the weapon, a strange window appeared in front of him, which helped him aim. The next second, he fired several arrows. They all hit the bull's head. Ash was happy, thinking that the animal was finished. Contrary to the boy's expectations, the bull did not fall dead, but stood in its place and seemed even more enraged. A moment later, he rushed towards Ash. The boy began to get seriously worried and reached for his arrows to attack the bull again. A window suddenly appeared, informing me that the arrow supply was empty. Hesitating, the hero missed the moment when the animal approached, feeling a sharp pain from its blow. The boy flew a few meters away, and having recovered, Charlie ran to his owner. As the bull stood watching his prey, the dog began to tug at Ash's pant leg, trying to get his attention. After clearing his throat, the hero looked at the dog, trying to understand what he wanted from him. After this, Charlie turned towards the house and started barking. Ash realized that Anya was in danger. Meanwhile, the girl observed dramatic changes in her beloved pet. Feeling intense fear, she slowly moved towards the exit. A moment later, Jack lunged at her. Ash made it in time. He was the first to attack the dog, saving his sister. After which, he picked her up in his arms, saying that he would take her to a safe place. As he headed towards the exit, he asked her to promise not to leave there under any circumstances until he himself came for her. A minute later, they approached the barn, which was to serve as a shelter. The boy was overcome by intense fear and cold. Suddenly, the system window appeared in front of him again, informing him that a living organism was rapidly approaching him. Ash couldn't understand what it was. He began to think that he was hallucinating. Having reached the building, he left the girl there, reminding her not to go outside under any circumstances. As soon as he closed the door, the hero felt a burning pain from the claws on his back. Jack attacked him, after which the dog jumped back, expecting a response. Anna heard strange sounds outside and was very worried about her brother. Charlie, who had come running, distracted Jack. Ash told his sister that he was fine and that she shouldn't worry. Noticing the bull approaching, he ran as far away from the barn as possible, taking it with him. Noticing the axe, he grabbed it without thinking. Confronting such a powerful animal with bare hands would be pure suicide. Having reached the old oak tree, he stopped, turning his back to it and waiting for the enemy. When the bull was 2 meters away from him, Ash threw himself away from the tree, allowing the animal to crash into the powerful trunk. The guy's plan worked, and the enemy got stuck with his horns in the oak tree, and the hero raised his axe over his body. The next second, Jack sank into his neck. Immediately after this, the freed bull pierced his stomach with its horns. Ash coughed up blood. He couldn't believe that it would end this way. There was a loud noise in his head, and strange windows continued to appear, indicating that preparations were underway to start the survival game. Despite all the pain, he tried to force himself to move. He can't leave Anna. It seemed to him that he was gradually sinking to the bottom of the ocean. The guy listened to an unknown voice that said that he was on the first level. His bonus ability of the first level is the Eye of Truth. Suddenly he opened his eyes to find himself lying on the ground. He couldn't understand why he was alive. The bull's blow should have finished him off. Ash noticed that he was not in pain, and his wounds had healed as if they had never been there. Only his torn clothes proved otherwise. Suddenly a severe headache struck him. Raising his head, he saw a dead bull with its head cut off. And on the opposite side he found a motionless Jack. Ash didn't understand what happened after he lost consciousness. A human was definitely not capable of such destructive power. The next moment, crazy images flashed through his mind. A moment after losing consciousness, he woke up as a player. His body was filled with incredible power. He was enveloped in lightning bolts. Ash hit the dog without holding back his force. From such a blow, Jack flew several meters away from the guy, after which he took an axe and chopped the bull with it. The blow was strong, but not enough to kill him. The animal only moved away from its victim, howling in pain. As soon as the foreign body left Ash, his wounds began to heal instantly. The next second, he attacked the bull again, intending to finish him off. All these memories were accompanied by hellish pain throughout the body. A few minutes later, he sat breathing heavily, thinking that everything that was happening really did seem like a game. A new system window appeared stating that the game synchronization is complete. After reading the information, he learned that a new period of destruction had begun, which would repeat itself in a month. The world would be destroyed by natural disasters. His goal in this game was to survive by creating a safe shelter. Ash was terrified to imagine what awaited him during the second stage. He stood up and walked over to Jack. He was alive, just unconscious. After analyzing the system's data, he came to the conclusion that the animals mutated because they ate plants that were poisoned by radiation. The hero tied up the dog and took it with him, intending to lock it in a safe place so that no one would get hurt. Sometime later, he was at the entrance to the barn. The guy went down to the basement, leaning against the wall so as not to fall in the dark room. He stumbled upon the switch, but there was still no electricity. Shining a flashlight on the road, he listened to the sounds, trying to figure out where Anya was. As he went deeper, he noticed her slippers peeking out from behind the boxes. He immediately rushed in that direction. Sitting down next to her, he was quite frightened because the girl lay motionless and did not react in any way to his screams. When Ash picked her up, the system reported that Anya was just sleeping, which made the guy very happy. A few moments later, she woke up and, sleepily rubbing her eyes, asked her brother if he was okay. After making sure that his sister was okay, he pulled out an old mattress and laid Anya on it, saying that she could sleep a little longer, but that he needed to finish some things. Once outside, he tried to figure out how this system differed from regular computer games. He was interested in the question mark that appeared on the information window. Clicking on it, he saw information that points are the system's currency, which can be used to buy food and seeds that can grow even in poisoned soil. He was pleased with this fact, but when he looked at the price, his joy quickly evaporated. He didn't have any points to buy anything. Having learned everything he needed and having examined the supplies in the house, he came to the conclusion that everything that had been in direct contact with the ground had been contaminated to one degree or another. Ash came up with the smart idea of destroying the source of infection for any living organisms on his property. Sometime later, he burned all contaminated supplies and things. He looked at the flames, finally realizing that their life would never be the same again. A couple of minutes later, he went down to the basement again. Entering the secret room, he started the diesel generator, after which the light came on, allowing Ash to see an entire wall with many types of weapons in front of him. The hero took the pistol he liked. After making sure it was comfortable, he put it in the inside pocket of his jacket, after which he quietly approached his sister and left a radio near her so that she could contact him at any time. Having done this, he went out into the street. He took the car and went to the city. The noise of the car attracted the attention of the frantic animals. Suddenly, a truck appeared behind him and started shooting at them. Ash didn't expect anyone to appear in the area. Having dealt with the animals, the truck overtakes the hero and blocks his path, forcing him to stop. Ash had to brake suddenly to avoid an accident. Meanwhile, they aimed a machine gun at the guy, intending to kill their target at any moment. A few seconds later, the soldier confirmed that there was an ordinary person inside the car who did not pose a threat. He told the others that all dangerous targets had been successfully eliminated. Ash saw the man's uniform and realized that these were soldiers from a neighboring base. If even they were involved, the city would be in complete chaos. Ed told the guy that it was very dangerous outside now and he should go home. The hero replied that he had run out of supplies and asked about the situation in the city. The soldier replied that if he needed supplies, the guy should go to the government supply point and it would be better not to go into the city. As soon as the truck drove away, A military helicopter flew past a couple of seconds later. Ash concluded that if they resorted to using Air Force, then there were a lot of mutated animals in the city. Sometime later, he was already in the city. There was complete devastation everywhere. Looking around, he came to the conclusion that there was no one left on the streets except the police and ambulances. Ash drove past another ambulance, into which yet another victim was being loaded. He understood that medicine would not be able to cope with the consequences of plant irradiation, and all hospitals would be overcrowded. He was tormented by doubts about whether he could protect his sister in this ruthless game. After driving a couple of blocks, Ash saw a supply point with a small crowd gathered near it. The police told everyone to line up and remain calm. There will be enough food for everyone. By presenting an ID, everyone will be able to receive 2 kilograms of rice, flour, and some vegetables. Despite the man's words, there was confusion in the crowd. Every second person was arguing with his neighbor. Those who received food were attacked, and if they could not fight back, their food was taken away. Ash didn't stop at this crowd. He decided to check on the condition of his bride. Suddenly, a military truck emerged from the nearest turn. The hero had to take measures to prevent them from colliding. He turned into a narrow alley. The man standing by the wall was clutching a large bag to himself as he looked around carefully. A couple of seconds later, he approached the car and asked if Ash was on his way from the supply point. If he hadn't been able to get food, the men had a good offer. He opened the bag, revealing a pile of homegrown produce. The hero looked at it carefully, and then grinning said that if the man could eat any of it in front of him, Ash would buy everything. The merchant did not expect that his plan would fail. The next moment, he literally showered the guy with empty threats. Ash was tired of hearing all this. He took out a gun and pointed it at the man, who immediately stopped threatening, asking him to listen to him. The boy interrupted him, saying that if he shot such a vile merchant, who knew how many lives he could save. He realized that this man was not to be trifled with, so he apologized and walked away from the car. After this, Ash continued on his way to the bride's house. Finding himself on the right street, he went out. 5 minutes later, he knocked on the door of her apartment, but no one opened the door. The guy thought the girl wasn't home and took the spare key under the mat. A moment later, he entered the apartment, asking if anyone was home. There was no answer. Ash was surprised by the complete chaos inside, because Alice was a rather clean person. Suddenly, he noticed medicine and contaminated food on the table. He walked up and took the medicine, reading the name. The guy did not understand how the girl could buy the products of a company about which disgusting rumors were circulating. After examining the room, he found no blood or signs of forced entry. The guy wondered where she could have gone amidst all this chaos. A week later, the situation became slightly better. The snow and terrible frost disappeared, allowing the hero to cultivate the land to grow edible food. As Ash was cultivating a new area of land, Anya, who was helping him, noticed that the newly planted seedlings were beginning to sprout and called out to her brother. The hero was glad that the radiation-resistant seeds had sprouted and that they also ripened in a matter of minutes. Anya was genuinely happy because these were the first seeds they had planted to sprout. After some time, the fruits were fully ripe and ready to be picked. When Ash picked one tomato, the system informed him that long-term consumption of them could significantly improve his physical fitness. He decided to taste the fruit. The hero immediately felt the fatigue that had accumulated over the past few days disappear from his body. This discovery motivated him to take the farm seriously. In this system, everything depends on points. The only source of points is the exchange system. Agricultural products, livestock products, and minerals can be used for exchange. Depending on the product level, different amounts of points are awarded. The hero currently only has anti-radiation products, but he has already imagined what the effect of higher-level products might be. Coming out of his thoughts, he decided to check the healing-level fruits. He was very surprised when he saw a carrot that was 5 times larger than a normal one. The system reported that it removes all the negative consequences of any poisoning and illness, including irreversible damage, which was great news. Now they don't have to worry about medication. A couple of minutes later, he exchanged most of the harvest, keeping the rest in reserve. With the points he received, he bought several more packages of anti-radiation and healing-level seeds. Suddenly, the system notified the guy that he had reached the level of Exchange Master, after which a robot assistant appeared in front of him as a reward. Ash was surprised that a reward was given for the very first exchange. He realized that you can get some bonuses for achievements. When the robot was in his hand, the guy thought it was too small and completely unsuitable for the role of an assistant. The robot, as if reading its owner's thoughts, frowned. The next second, he slipped out of his hand and showed all his abilities, moving with astonishing speed. Less than a minute had passed before the assistant had tidied up the room. Ash was pleased that he received a rather useful bonus from the system. If he earned points for a combat robot, then he would not have to worry about his sister's safety. A few hours later, the hero invited Anya to dinner, saying that today they would have chicken. The girl and Charlie moved to the table at the speed of light, looking at the dish with eyes full of happiness. Suddenly Anya felt sad, remembering Jack, and she was upset by the fact that he was forced to be away from them. Ash hastened to calm his sister, saying that he was badly injured, so he couldn't go out to her yet. He asked her not to go into the attic under any circumstances, so as not to interfere with Jack's recovery. He was distracted from his conversation by a system warning that someone was trying to break into his shelter. The guy asked for surveillance access to see the insolent person. The next moment he saw a man he knew. The hero did not understand what he was doing there. A couple of minutes later, Ash came out to the gate, asking what had happened. Paul asked the guy if he had any extra food from the farm. His house had been robbed, and all the food had been stolen. It was hard for Ash to see his former family friend in such a state. He apologized to him, saying that he also had no supplies. Everything he grew was contaminated. Paul looked at the guy understandingly, saying that all the relatives he had visited also had their vegetation rendered unfit for consumption. Suddenly the hero said that he could give him dry rations, but very small ones, in gratitude for his care for them in the past. The man was very grateful to the guy. A few minutes later, Ash returned to the gate with a small parquet, saying that all he had to share was instant noodles. Paul was even happy about this. He accepted the package and thanked the guy. Ash looked at the departing man with regret. He could not risk revealing his secret to anyone in the current situation. He decided to visit him late at night and secretly give him fresh vegetables. A few hours later, he took Anya and they drove together to Paul's house. He didn't want to leave his sister alone, fearing for her life. When the hero arrived in the city, he was surprised at how quiet it was here. Not even the barking of dogs could be heard. After driving a few blocks, the car stopped at the right house. Getting out of the car, Anya handed her brother a small package, saying that these were snacks from her for Paul. Suddenly, Ash heard screams. The guy turned around, realizing from the voice that the sounds were coming from Paul's apartment. The man was in despair. His son seemed to be recovering, but the persistent bloody cough indicated otherwise. Ash approached the window of the house to see what was going on there. He thought the boy's symptoms were similar to those of someone who had eaten contaminated vegetables. Suddenly he realized that this was a great opportunity to test the effect of his healing vegetables. Paul didn't know what to do. He blamed the doctors for their incompetence, which is why his son was now dying. A moment later, the boy grabbed his throat, finding it difficult to breathe. The man could only shed bitter tears looking at his son's condition. Suddenly, a package flew in and broke through the room's window. Paul stood up and started shouting, indignant at who had come up with such an idea. But his son interrupted his father, pointing to the package, and with great difficulty he asked to see what was there. The man untied the rope and removed the cloth that was wrapped around the bag and was very surprised to see fresh vegetables inside. Ash stood under the window and heard Paul's joyful cries about how they had a lot of food. Suddenly, among the vegetables, he noticed something round, wrapped in paper. He unfolded the paper and took out a carrot, reading the message which advised him to give his son the carrot if he did not want to see his son die. After reading the inscription, Paul considered these words nonsense, wondering who dared to joke about him in such a way. Suddenly his son called him. He said that he wanted to try. He didn't want to die so early. Paul, wiping away his tears, decided to trust the message. A minute later, he gave his son a carrot. As soon as the guy ate it, his body was pierced by terrible pain. He could not hold back painful screams. Paul was very scared when his son started coughing up blood again. But a couple of moments later, the guy's face began to take on a healthy hue. The man beamed with happiness and joy as he watched his dying son recover from his illness. Ash was still at the house when he heard joyful cries, meaning that his vegetables could indeed cure any disease. Leaving the courtyard, the hero noticed that the streetlights had started to light up. He thought that if the power had been restored, then the connection should appear too. Taking out his cell phone, he dialed his fiancée's number, hoping that she would answer the call. Alice's phone suddenly rang, breaking the silence in the car. One of the men sitting in the front seat asked whose phone was disturbing his rest. The driver replied that the melody was coming from the phone of the girl lying in the back seat. Taking out her phone, the man asked his friend how much food he thought they would get after delivering the girl to her address, and he replied with satisfaction that they wouldn't have to worry about it for at least a few months. They pulled up to the Triad Pharmaceutical Company building when one of them began to wonder why the company needed so many people. Ash and Anya headed back, the whole way, the girl admiring how the vegetables grown by her brother helped Paul's son recover. For some time now, a dark shadow had been following the car, moving through the trees. Suddenly, the hero felt as if something heavy had fallen on the car, causing it to start swerving to the sides. The next moment, through the glass, he saw the head of the monster that was on their roof. He told Anya to close her eyes and hold on tightly to the seatbelt. The next moment, he turned sharply towards the park. The monster began to slide off the roof. At that moment, Ash reached for his gun. The next moment, the monster moved from the roof to the hood of the car, wanting to get to its victim from there. The hero began to press the pedals to the floor, and a moment later he crushed the beast between the trees. After that, the guy opened the window and aimed the gun at him. The next moment there was a loud sound. The beast's head was shot through. Ash got out of the car to make sure he was dead. Unexpectedly for himself, he noticed a number on the monster's body. The guy couldn't understand where he came from if there were no nurseries or zoos in the area. He suddenly remembered the pills he found in Alice's apartment, because the closest thing that could be here was the laboratory of the Triad Pharmaceutical Company. When they arrived home, a thunderstorm was starting outside. Ash told Anya that she could watch cartoons, but he still had things to do. After that, he went up to Jack's attic. Sitting down in front of his cage, he took out a healing carrot. Opening the cage, he tried to feed it to the dog, hoping that it could save him. The guy believed until the very end that Jack could return to his former self. With each passing minute, the thunder grew louder and louder, making Anya afraid. She was worried about her brother and decided to go looking for him. The girl found it in the attic in Jack's room. She happily jumped onto his back. Ash didn't expect Anya to come here at the most inopportune time. Looking forward, she froze in horror for a couple of seconds. She felt as if something in her heart had broken. Jack lay on the floor in a pool of his own blood. Anya started crying, asking her brother to use the healing carrot as soon as possible. The hero hugged his sister, saying that carrots cannot save already mutated organisms. He sat there for a long time, trying to console his sister. He too was hurt by the loss of his faithful friend. The next morning, Ash buried Jack under a large tree in the yard. Anya, who had cried all night, could not say a word as she looked at the grave. Her brother took her hand, saying that it was getting cold and that it was time for them to go home. Sometime later, he called her for breakfast, but she ignored his words, staring fixedly at the monitor. Ash just exhaled heavily, asking Charlie to keep an eye on Anya. He himself went to collect the harvest in order to later send it for exchange. When the system reported a successful exchange, his assistant, who had finished cleaning, was sitting on the guy's shoulder. After making sure he had enough points, the hero upgraded the greenhouse, raising it to a higher level. Suddenly, a warning appeared in front of him, advising him to create a defense system for his shelter as quickly as possible. After that, he began to think that he really should improve the security of the farm to prevent mutated animals from getting in. The next moment, the system notified him that the fence's fortification had been raised by 1 level. Ash also added electrified wire to the high fence. With his last remaining points, he purchased a robot that could observe everything from above and, if necessary, attack the target. He was thinking about trying to buy a robot protector for Anya when he saw something that caught his interest. The guy came across a suitable robot in the form of a dog, but unfortunately, he doesn't have enough points for it. He decided to sell the food supplies he had left for himself in order to buy it. A few minutes later, 2 robots materialized in front of him, one in the form of a hummingbird and the other in the form of a dog. Ash went outside to test their skills. He told the bird to knock all the falling leaves off the tree. The guy watched as she darted from one place to another with lightning speed, perfectly completing the task at hand. He thought that it would be convenient to use it for aerial patrols and sniper attacks. After that, he decided to test the hound's abilities. Pointing to a huge stone in front of him, he told the robot to blow it up. The hound began to form a charge in the cannon that was in its mouth. A second later, the stone was destroyed, leaving behind only small fragments. Ash was very surprised by the combat power of the first-level robot. He can be completely calm about his sister's safety. Returning home, he called Anya, wanting to attract her attention. When she turned around, a mechanical dog was standing in front of her. The guy said that he would protect her from now on. Observing his sister's reaction, he suggested naming him Jack. Anya agreed, barely holding back her tears. Meanwhile, the head of the Triad laboratory reports to his subordinate on the test results. In concluding his report, the employee reported that Deputy Director Maria Edison was unhappy that they had not donated medical equipment. If she discovered their experiments and reported them to the head office, they would be in trouble. After these words, Martin sat down in his chair. Maria's displeasure did not come as a surprise to him. He told the employee that she shouldn't focus on it. Even if she wanted to check something, she needed to know where to start. The guy tried to say something else, but Martin got ahead of him, telling him not to take his eyes off this woman, reporting to him about her every step. She should not interfere with his plans. When the boy came out, the man started laughing. He already imagined how big a fortune he could make if he succeeded. Sometime later, the deputy director burst into the office, heading to Martin Stewart's office. The secretary tried to stop the girl, saying that he was not there at the moment. Ignoring the secretary's words, Maria entered the director's office without knocking, asking him what he was thinking about. The girl was furious. She said that he should now be doing everything in his power to support hospitals that were struggling to cope with the sick, and not wasting time and resources on experiments on animals. Martin interrupted her angry tirade, telling her that she shouldn't barge into his office like that. He said that he is an entrepreneur, And the goal of entrepreneurship is to extract profit from any situation. Modern medicine is not able to do anything in the current situation in the world. Maria wanted to object, but he did not allow her, saying that she was also a shareholder and received dividends. If they proposed a way to solve the problem with the mutation, then they would receive a huge sum as a reward. After his words, her indignation subsided, and she asked if the man had managed to make progress in his research. Having received an affirmative nod, she said that in that case she was obliged to walk around the laboratory to see everything with her own eyes. The man tried his best to restrain the urge to kill Maria right there. Smiling, he replied that it would take some time before the cure was announced, and if she provided him with new employees for the project, things would go faster. The girl said that she would visit the lab a little later to understand where they had left off. She would be able to collaborate with him only after she checked how the work was going. When she left the office, a subordinate was waiting for her, who reported that the technical team did not have enough time to scan Martin's entire office through her necklace, but they assumed that the entrance to the secret lab was not there. After listening to the guy, Maria asked if they had managed to recruit the captured experiments. Kai gave a negative answer, saying that they were blindfolded every time they entered, but he managed to get a pass, which made the girl very happy. After which the guy handed it to her. Sometime later, an older man met the girl, saying that he would accompany her today and tell her about the study. They approached one of the test subjects. Steve said that he was the only one who had not gone mad. While his strength had increased tenfold despite the lack of madness, he was quite unstable and showed aggression. Suddenly a man ran up to them, saying that they had a serious problem. He didn't intend to advertise this to strangers, so he whispered everything to his boss. After listening to his subordinate, he turned to the girl, saying that an emergency had arisen and he would have to leave the girl. He would ask a colleague to give her a tour. Maria, smiling, said that she could look around here herself. When they tried to object, the girl reminded them that there were video surveillance cameras everywhere here, and they had nothing to worry about. Eventually, the man gave in and left her alone. After this, the girl turned on the earpiece, saying that they could begin. Having received permission, the guy from the technical group took over control of the video surveillance system. A few seconds later, Maria received a message that everything was ready and asked to find the location of the secret entrance. The guy said that the entrance was in the corner of the room. When she got there, the girl discovered a bulge on the wall. She pressed it, after which the lid rose up. Maria entered the code dictated by the guy, after which he said that she had 30 minutes to examine everything. The next moment the door opened, letting her in. As she passed the test subjects, she thought that the situation was much worse than she had expected. Not only animals, but also people were being experimented on. What she saw next made her stop. Maria saw a successful attempt to combine a human and an animal. The upper body belonged to a girl, and the lower part to a fish of incredible size. Meanwhile, Ash and Anya were collecting ripe anti-radiation corn. The girl approached her brother and, holding out the corn in front of her, said that she wanted to fry it. The hero asked her to bring him some dry firewood, and he would cook her corn in oil. Sometime later, they were sitting by the fire. Anya asked if she would get fat if she ate so much. Ash said that these were special vegetables that strengthen their physical strength and she would not get fat. He noticed that she had indeed started eating a lot more, and when he looked at her data in the system, he saw that her stats had increased. The boy began to worry that if they continued eating these vegetables, his little sister would become like a bodybuilder. But he pushed these stupid thoughts away, smiling at such nonsense. A couple of minutes later, the system reported that he had a visitor. Ash was surprised. He wasn't expecting anyone. The next moment, the system showed an image of Paul's son Tom standing at the gate with a bag in his hands. The hero decided to go out to the guy and find out what the matter was that he had come for. Tom said that he brought him food as a thank you for his help a few days ago. Ash accepted the package, asking where he got so much food. The guy awkwardly scratched the back of his head and smilingly replied that they found her in the yard near the house. After that, he asked if he could ask Ash for one favor. Having received an approving answer, he said that a new supply point had opened in the suburbs, and Tom would like to borrow his car to go and buy groceries. The hero didn't see a problem with letting the boy borrow his car, so he replied that he could take it. Tom hesitated, saying that he didn't have a license and that the pickup point was far from here. Ash understood what he was getting at. He himself wanted to go shopping, but he got carried away with things on the farm, constantly postponing the shopping trip. Remembering Jack's abilities, he can leave Anya under his supervision without worrying about her safety. Tom was genuinely happy when the hero said he would give him a ride. After this, Ash returned to the house to warn his sister about his departure and remind her not to open the door to anyone or go anywhere in his absence. Anya said that she could be relied upon. After her words, he stroked his sister on the head, saying that he and Tom would bring her something tasty. Hearing Tom's name, she said that she wanted to say hello to him. A couple of minutes later, the car stopped next to the waiting guy, opening the window, and a happy Anya looked out of it, getting ready to ask how he was feeling. Her brother interrupted her, saying that it was time for her to give up her seat to Tom and go home. A few moments later, she looked at the car as it drove away, dissatisfied that her brother hadn't really let her talk to that guy. The whole time they were driving, Ash hoped that Tom hadn't figured out how his sister knew about his illness. Breaking the silence, the guy asked if the hero was afraid to leave Anya alone at home. If someone suddenly broke into his farm, the girl could be in danger. Ash replied that he was an ordinary farmer, he had no food or money. There was no point in anyone breaking into his house. When Tom asked if he had left something for his sister for self-defense in case of emergency, he received a negative answer. He explained that Anya was still too young to take advantage of it, so he installed electricity at the farm gates to prevent anyone from entering. After his words, Tom smiled, saying that in that case he didn't have to worry about the girl. After that, he took out his phone and started writing a message to someone. The hero, who was watching this action, had an unpleasant feeling. Noticing his gaze, the guy looked up from his phone and explained that he had asked his friend for money because he was worried that his savings might not be enough. Ash just silently looked at the boy, the feeling of some danger and anxiety growing stronger with every second. Meanwhile, Anya was watching a cartoon with Charlie. Suddenly, she realized that Tom also had the ability to change his skin color, just like the main character in the cartoon. Last time she saw him, he was green, but today he was red. She decided that she would ask him to teach her to do the same. The hero handed the guy money, which should have been enough to buy food. Tom looked at the bills handed to him in surprise. Ash said that he didn't have much money either, but it should be enough. The guy tried to politely refuse. He felt awkward accepting money from the hero. Ignoring all the objections, Ash repeated more insistently that the boy take the money, without further ado. After this, Tom squeezed the accepted bills and said that he would definitely repay for the help. When they had covered an impressive distance, the guy began to become noticeably nervous. Suddenly, as Ash was about to make another turn, he stopped him. Meeting the hero's puzzled gaze, he explained that the road on the right was blocked, and they should take a detour. The hero looked at the guy for a few moments, becoming increasingly convinced that something was wrong here. After this, Ash turned the car around and stopped. He asked the guy where he got the information that the road was closed, since it was a main road. It could only be closed due to a major natural disaster. When Tom said that he learned about this from a friend, Ash asked him to call this friend in front of him. The guy was very nervous. He said that there was no point in him deceiving the hero. If they didn't hurry, they wouldn't make it before closing. His voice trembled violently as he asked you to trust him just once. The next moment, the hero turned the steering wheel, realizing that his premonition had not deceived him. He ran back to the farm at full speed. The man watching the beacon on the map lost his temper when his target changed direction. The bodyguard sitting in the car asked him what he intended to do in the current situation. He called for reinforcements, giving orders to pin the target from the front and rear so that he could not return. At the same time, Tom, shedding tears, admitted that he had lied. He said they captured his father and he had no other choice. Ash tried to find out who it was and what they wanted from him, pressing the pedals to the floor. The guy said that these were people from the Triad. They found out that the hero had a cure for the infection. They forced Tom to lure him away from the farm. The moment Tom said that these people were planning to capture Anya in her brother's absence, Ash felt like he had been doused with a bucket of cold water. Fear for his sister gradually gave way to rage. He shouted that Anya was only 6 years old. Thomas was helping to kidnap a little girl who didn't understand anything. Suddenly, a car appeared in front and tried to block his path. It was only at that moment that Ash realized that he had sent all the information he had learned about the farm to these people. At this time, the Triad people had already begun an infiltration operation. Tom begged the hero to give these people the medicine they were asking for. Otherwise, they might even resort to murder. Ash had no intention of giving anything to anyone. If they went to the farm, he would not let anyone out alive. On the day Tom suddenly recovered, he said he found an old apple in the basement and ate it, unaware that it might be contaminated. His father said that now they would not have to starve. He asked Tom for food, and an unknown person also gave them a bunch of vegetables and medicine that saved his son. Paul considered it a divine blessing. But his son did not share his father's views, because if it were God's providence, he would not have allowed such a thing to happen to their world. He wondered what kind of person it was who could share so much food with others. He felt it was unfair that his family was doomed to starvation, and could only provide themselves with the basic necessities of survival, while others could easily afford to throw away food. Suddenly he remembered something important and stood up abruptly, surprising his father. Saying that he would be back soon, Tom ran out of the house. A few minutes later, he found himself at his neighbor's door. The guy said his house had been robbed and he wanted to watch the surveillance video to identify the perpetrator. Having received permission, he sat down at the monitor, looking for the recording he needed. A few minutes later, on one of the videos, he saw Ash's car driving up to their house a few hours ago. Returning home, he told his father that he found out who saved him. Looking at Paul's questioning face, Tom replied that he had just checked the cameras and it was Ash. After his son's words, the man perked up. He was sincerely grateful to this guy for not only sharing food with them, but also saving Tom's life. Suddenly, the boy asked his father if he knew that the Triad was looking for effective cures for the infection, offering a generous reward. Hearing this from his son, Paul felt that he was up to something bad, but the boy only looked away, saying that he only wanted to make their lives easier in this world. The man couldn't believe that his son could even think about such a thing. The next moment, he slapped Tom, wanting to bring the guy back to his senses. He said that if the guy tried to disturb Ash, he would break his legs. Now the hero was trying to break away from the tail. Suddenly, he noticed two cars blocking his path ahead. Ash began to brake to avoid a dangerous collision. As soon as he stopped, the car pursuing him backed him up from behind. Ash got out of his car, taking Tom hostage. Edison was already waiting for the guy. He said that he wanted to offer the hero a partnership. He supplies the medicine, and they contribute to medicine and share the profits. The guy asked what would happen if he refused. The man offered him two possible scenarios, one of which was voluntary cooperation, where everyone would be alive and happy. After pausing, he continued, saying that otherwise, they would find a way to force him to cooperate with them, at which point Ash was surrounded by Edison's men, drawing their weapons. The hero said that he found the medicine completely by accident. He gave it all to Tom, so he himself had nothing left. The guy noticed that the men did not have pistols, so there was no need for Thomas. Edison laughed at this boy's words, telling him that he didn't fully understand the situation. The next moment, he called someone and gave the order to break into the farm and then feed the contaminated fruit to the girl. The man turned to Ash, saying that by installing electricity, he had not ensured the farm's protection. There were now specialists there who would be inside in a matter of minutes. Suddenly, blue flames began to surround Ash. He said that what he hates most is being threatened. Edison couldn't understand how an ordinary boy could have such a terrifying aura. The hero praised him for not going to the farm himself. He could live a little longer here. The man didn't take his words seriously, telling the boy to stop bluffing and agree to cooperate. Then his sister would be fine. Ash just looked at him silently. A few moments later, the man ordered that he be seized. The hero confronted the guards with his bare hands. Edison couldn't believe his eyes as his men gave up their positions one after another. He turned around as a guard, thrown aside by the guy's blow, flew past him. The man lured Ash away from the farm because they found out that the weapons were only there. He couldn't understand what was happening here. The hero took out the attackers with a smile. He didn't expect the anti-radiation plants to have such a good effect. In addition to improving his strength and speed, his skeleton became stronger. Having finished testing his abilities, he moved away from the remaining men, after which he took out a gun, aiming it at one of them. Edison realized that he had miscalculated by underestimating the guy. He told Ash that he shouldn't anger the one behind him. After his words, the hero turned around sharply, shooting two guards, saying that Edison would still be useful, but the rest could be disposed of. The man managed to lie down on the ground at the last moment to avoid being hit by the bullet. Finding the right moment, he rushed into the forest to wait until the guy used up all his bullets. Ash noticed Edison running away and tried to shoot him. The man hid behind a rock, avoiding bullets. When the shot stopped, he thought the boy had finally run out of ammunition. Having let his guard down, the man did not notice how Ash climbed onto the rock behind which he was hiding. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the hero took out another pistol from his inventory. By the time Edison noticed the guy, it was already too late. Meanwhile, the last source of threat that was trying to get into the farm was destroyed. The hummingbird got rid of the crowd of uninvited guests in a matter of seconds. Anya watched everything carefully through the system image. When the system asked if the girl had any other orders, Anya thought that if her brother returned and saw a mountain of corpses at the gate, he might fall out of love with her for her excessive cruelty. So she gave a mental order to clear out the entrance. Sometime later, Edison said that he made a mistake. He should not have threatened the guy using his sister. He begged Ash to stop. He would tell him everything that interested him. The hero, blinded by rage, did not immediately grasp the meaning of the man's words. He said that he wouldn't leave him alone that easily. He could beat him half to death, then heal him and continue again if he dared to lie even once. The man answered wearily that he would tell everything honestly. Ash asked who his boss was and wasn't surprised when he heard the name of the Triad director. When he asked if anyone else was involved, Edison replied that Martin was the only one in charge of the project, that he kept all the information secret from others, and that he had recently had disagreements with his deputy. The hero was surprised when he learned that the president planned to provide Ash's products and the results of his experiments to the main office. The guy did not know that Triad was only a subsidiary company. He then asked if the top brass at headquarters knew what was going on. Edison replied that no, the deputy director had support at the main office, and if any unnecessary information leaked out, the research would be shut down. Ash was pleased with this news. While the information was not disclosed, there was an opportunity to solve the problem that had arisen. He asked to be taken to the director. Suddenly the phone rang in Martin's office. Picking up the phone, he asked Edison if he had completed the task and received a positive answer. The guy agreed to cooperate with them after meeting with his superiors. The man said to take the boy to the warehouse. He would arrive there soon. Having dropped the call, he left his office, not happy that everything was not going as smoothly as he would have liked. After the conversation ended, Ash got into a car with Edison and one of his confidants, heading to the specified address. The waiting men noticed two figures approaching at the entrance. Martin asked the new arrival why he had come alone with the hostage, without taking the informant with him. The guard replied that the informant had lost consciousness and Edison had stomach pains, so he sent him away. The man was amused that Ash, despite being in such a terrible state, still refused to cooperate. He said that he would let Paul go as soon as the guy told everything about the medicine. The man couldn't hold back his tears at the sight of the boy. He prayed that Ash wouldn't tell them anything. These people wouldn't let them go alive anyway. He began to moan in protest through the gag, drawing Martin's attention back to himself. The president was already starting to get irritated by this old man and he kicked him, telling him to finally calm down. The next moment, Martin turned his attention back to the new arrivals, telling the guard to come closer. Suddenly, the hero jumped down from above, climbing through the window, straight onto the president. Everyone present was surprised by such a sudden appearance. Martin lay on the floor, unable to move. Once the guards recovered from their shock, Ash told them to stay still or he would shoot their boss. The man didn't understand what was happening, and started threatening the guy that he wouldn't get off easy if he touched him. Ash pointed the gun at his head, saying that he could shoot at any moment. After which he pointed towards Edison, with a bandaged head, saying that his assistant was there. The man understood that he had no other option but to blackmail the old man with his life. But the hero felt complete superiority in this situation, so blackmail had no effect on him. The guards moved towards the guy, wanting to help their boss. Ash fired at the approaching men without thinking, after which he put a bullet into Martin's head. A few moments later, Paul and Thomas were on their knees apologizing to the hero, the man thanking him for saving them once again. Ash asked him to get up. He had nothing to apologize for. All the blame lay only with Thomas, who did not deserve forgiveness. He said he wouldn't touch it just because he didn't see the need, but if he did anything else, it would be the last thing he did. Paul assured that his son would not cause any more trouble and asked what Ash would do with all these people, after which they were asked to gather all the corpses into one pile. When Thomas had gathered all the guards in one place, he assumed that the hero would burn the place down to get rid of the bodies. Paul confirmed his son's thoughts, saying that they were in the middle of nowhere and that the case would be difficult to solve, after which he approached Edison's body. A man pretending to be dead attacked an old man. He stabbed him in the thigh with a shard of glass. As Paul fell to the floor, he raised the chip over him, intending to kill him. Thomas ran to his father's aid, shielding him with his body. The next moment, sharp glass pierced the guy's chest. The heart of the unfortunate father was breaking with pain for his son. The next moment, Ash arrives and knocks down Edison. Having slammed the man into the wall, the hero gets out of the car. As he approached the sobbing Paul, he saw that his son had been fatally wounded. On the verge of death, Thomas said that his father was right, that he had foolishly dragged him and Ash into such a dangerous situation, and that he deserved to die like that. After which he extended his clenched hand towards the hero. Thomas said that that time, in the bag with food, there were Anya's candies. He immediately understood this, because before he often treated her to the same ones. He asked Ash to tell her thank you for the sweets. It was his last request. When Paul realized his son was dead, something in his heart sank. Having removed the splinter from his body, he slowly stood up. The hero watched as the man staggered towards Edison, after which he repeatedly inflicted fatal blows on the man's body. Sometime later, they emerged from the burning house. Maria was drinking coffee in her office when she was suddenly called out to say that something bad had happened. She told her subordinate to calm down and tell her story in order. The girl was very surprised when she was informed of Martin's death. A quarter of an hour later, she was in the morgue, asking if it had been possible to establish the identities of the dead. The doctor answered positively, saying that two of them were Martin Stewart and Edison Cross. After this, she asked whether it was a murder or an accident, and they answered that it was definitely a murder, explaining that bullet remnants were found in their bodies, and the fire was started by a car. Maria removed the sheet, examining the burned corpse. She wondered how terrible a person Martin had crossed. She didn't know whether this man was an enemy of the entire triad or Stewart's personal executioner. If the second, then she will only breathe a sigh of relief. But if the first, then this is her enemy too. Meanwhile, Ash bought a bomb chip. Paul wanted to avenge the murder of his son. even if it cost him his life. Afterwards, the hero attached the chip to the man, saying that he got rid of most of the evidence, but that doesn't mean those people won't find something that points to his involvement. A few hours later, Ash's car was approaching the farm. The hero found his sister in the yard. Coming closer, he asked what she was doing, noticing the huge pile of sand and the excavator. Anya replied that she was playing in the sandbox. Ash said that he had already seen everything, and there was no point in lying to him. The girl guiltily lowered her head, saying that she was afraid that he would hate her and leave her. Hearing her words, the guy asked why he would leave her. He said that no matter what she did, he would always be there and help her take responsibility for her actions. After which he is next to her, saying that he is very glad that Anya was able to stand up for herself. He said that they do not harm other people, but if they attack, then first of all she should think about her own safety, not allowing herself to be harmed. Anya said that these people emitted an unpleasant red light, so she ordered them to be killed. After her words, Ash asked if she saw colors in other people. The girl replied that he emitted a pleasant blue color, and Paul a friendly green. The man flinched when she said there was a red glow coming from Thomas. Ash realized that the red light meant bad intentions towards her. He asked if she saw anything else, letters or numbers. But the girl answered negatively, saying that she began to see colors a week ago. The hero came to the conclusion that his sister was not a player, and that this ability was caused by the prolonged consumption of anti-radiation vegetables. Coming out of his thoughts, he told Anya that she had a very useful ability. If she saw someone with a red glow, she should tell him. After which he stroked her head, asking if she was hungry. Sometime later, they were all sitting at the dinner table. Ash said that Paul would now live with them and help them on the farm. When Anya asked where Thomas was, the man replied that he had traveled very far to atone for his sins. The girl understood what he meant and came to the conclusion that anyone who glows red and wants to hurt her brother does not live long. If anyone else dared to harm her brother, she promised to cut off that unfortunate man's head. Television reported that countless people had died in the 15 days since the disaster began. The gray-haired elderly man turned off the program he was tired of. A couple of minutes later, his son approached him. The man reported that the mutation process had accelerated, and the military had discovered a 5th-level mutant beast in the mountains. Brian was surprised by this news. Now they are able to research beasts that have reached no higher than the 3rd level. Richard explained the high mutation rate by the fact that animals can increase their level by eating other animals. A little more and modern technology will no longer be able to cope with this. For this reason, the man wants Brian to take over the laboratory of the deceased Martin. The guy will be able to find a lot of interesting things there for himself. Richard set his main task to be the removal of the C virus as quickly as possible. Maria had been studying the data about that day for a long time, trying to find out the details of Martin's death, but she still hadn't moved forward. There were absolutely no leads. She decided to leave the case and prepare for a meeting with the new manager. Sometime later, she left the office. An expensive car pulled up to the office, and a young guy got out of it. The girl greeted him. The guy asked the girl to give him a tour of the area where the new research institute was supposed to be located. Meanwhile, Ash was getting ready to go with Anya to dig a pond into which he would release fish. Sometime later, the guy marked out the area for the future pond. Paul, who played with Charlie, noticed that he had grown significantly. The hero was surprised by this statement. The dog was already an adult and should have stopped growing. The man said that last year, when he came to them, it was only up to his knee, but now it reaches his thigh. After his words, Ash was forced to agree with this. He sees Charlie every day and has not noticed any changes in him. He was worried that the sudden changes might have been caused by a mutation, but he had long ago gotten rid of all the infected creatures and plants in their territory. The guy decided to observe the dog's behavior in order to avoid unnecessary casualties. Suddenly, the system announced the arrival of a guest. Maria and Brian stood at the gate. The girl said that they had better places to locate the laboratory, but the guy said that this farm had a good location and that a security system and equipment could always be purchased. After a few minutes, she suggested that there was no one there and that they should come another time. But Brian told his assistant to keep knocking on the gate. A moment later, Ash appeared, asking why they had come here. Brian, smiling politely, said that he had one proposal and asked to let them in so they could talk face to face. The hero said that they could talk through the fence. He had a lot to do. Maria said that she is the president of the Triad. They want to buy this farm. The guy just needs to name the price. Ash began to worry that they had managed to find out about the peculiarities of his farm. Meanwhile, the girl continued, saying that she could provide the guy with other housing in the city center, paying generous compensation. She seemed surprised when Ash replied that he didn't need it. He wouldn't sell his farm. Maria assumed that after hearing the proposed price, the guy would change his mind, but she was again refused. After this, the guards pounced on the gate, telling the hero that they were asking him nicely, and he should not force them to take extreme measures. Suddenly, Brian called out to his assistant, after which he came closer and gave her a resounding slap. The guy warned him that if he allowed himself one more such liberty, he would return to his roots. Ash was surprised by Brian's behavior. He asked the big guy to come closer to him. When he was at a sufficient distance, the hero punched the man in the stomach. With this action, he slipped a hummingbird scout into his pocket without his noticing, after which the hero stepped back, saying that he hit his gate, and he hit the man. Now they are even. If they have nothing more to say, then they can leave. Brian watched this with a smile. Sometime later, he wrote his number on a piece of paper. He said that if the guy suddenly changed his mind, he could contact him at any time. Ash stood for a few moments, considering whether to take the piece of paper that was handed to him. After weighing all the pros and cons, he decided to keep the number, which surprised Maria quite a bit. Immediately after this, the uninvited guests left. Ash didn't think that the triad would decide to visit him so quickly, but it's not clear whether it was a coincidence or not. The next moment, he asked the system to show him the location of the reconnaissance robot. Sometime later, while inspecting the supplies, he came to the conclusion that he needed to start mastering cattle breeding because the frozen meat was running out, and there were only 10 days left until the second stage. During dinner, Paul watched with apprehension as Ash and his sister ate their vegetables. The hero decided to lift the veil of secrecy to the man, saying that their food is special. If you eat it regularly, certain changes occur in the body, improving physical fitness and health. When the man heard that even unusual abilities could arise, he said that it sounded like the plot of a science fiction movie. Ash agreed with this comparison, smiling at his interlocutor, after which he said that, being in their conditions, the emergence of any abilities is no longer something unusual. It is more like evolution. Suddenly, Paul asked who had come to see them that afternoon. The hero replied that they were people from the Triad. At the mention of this company, anger boiled up in the man. A few moments later, he asked if he could become stronger if he ate the vegetables grown here. Smiling, Ash gave this man a positive answer. A few hours later, when everyone had gone to bed, the hero, disguised, went to the hummingbird's location. Meanwhile, Maria and Brian arrived at the girl's house, saying that tomorrow she would find permanent housing for the guy. Walking inside, she informed him that dinner would be brought to his room a little later, while for now he could settle down in any free room on the first floor. Immediately after this, she wished the men good night and headed towards the stairs. Climbing up to the second floor, the girl did not understand where the annoying buzzing was coming from. Sometime later, Maria opened the window, breathing in a deep breath of fresh air. Suddenly, she hears a rustling sound from above and looks up. Ash didn't expect the girl to want to get some fresh air before going to bed, so he didn't have time to do anything. Deciding that he doesn't have many options, he jumps through the open window. Maria fell to the floor in surprise, and to avoid attracting unnecessary attention with her screams, the guy covered her mouth with his hand. At that moment, the girl could only think about the fact that tomorrow morning she would fire all the security and hire professionals. Suddenly, Ash said that he would let her go, but she should not scream if she tried to do something. Then he would gladly check who would be faster, his knife or her guard. Receiving a nod, he slowly pulled his hand away. Maria told him where the money and jewelry were kept. She said that he could take everything, but he shouldn't touch her, and she wouldn't even report it to the police. Ash replied that, unfortunately for her, he had not come for money. After his words, the girl began to think in a completely different direction, showering the guy with all possible insults. He had to shut her up again, after which he asked if she had sent Martin's killers. She asked a counter question whether he was the man of the murdered Stewart. In response, she heard that he once greatly helped this guy and now he is burning with a thirst for revenge on the killers of his benefactor. The girl has materials on this case which he wants to look at. Maria said she was cooperating with the police, but they had no leads that could lead to the identity of the killer. After which she reported that the man periodically destroyed all documents and erased videos from surveillance cameras. They were not even able to find out with whom he communicated before his death. Ash was very lucky that Martin didn't make his life difficult after death by carefully erasing all the data that could reveal the secret of his farm. Suddenly, he heard someone approaching. The next moment, he knocked the girl out with one blow. A couple of seconds later, a security guard burst into the room, but Ash had already managed to escape. The man ran to the window, hoping to catch the stranger, but he found no traces. When the hero found himself on the other side of the house, he was taken by surprise by a sudden question about whether it was rude of him to burst into the girl's room at such a late hour. Turning around, he saw Brian, after which he asked how he found him. The guy explained that when Ash jumped out of the window and activated the gravity sensor, he immediately sent an assistant to Maria's door. The hero noted that this guy was quite smart, but he did not pose much of a threat to him. So the next moment he rushed towards Brian, getting ready to attack. He managed to react to the sudden blow, blocking it with his knee. After this, the hero jumped back. The guy said that the bones of the arms are not comparable to the knee joint. So now Ash's elbow and radius should be broken due to the load received. but there is not a single injury on his opponent. Brian asked how his opponent had toughened his body to such a level. The hero didn't like this arrangement. His opponent turned out to be not as simple as he thought. Suddenly, he heard voices approaching. Ash said he had no time to entertain Brian, but he suddenly attacked the hero. He said that he wouldn't be able to leave here so easily. Ash threw sand in his opponent's face to give himself an opportunity to escape. Brian was blinded, causing him to miss the guy. A few seconds later, the guards came asking what had happened to him. Brian thought that his opponent was smart and his body was in perfect condition. He vowed that he would definitely find him. The guy replied that he was fine, but the one who got away was too fast and it would be impossible to catch up with him. In the morning, he examined Maria and concluded that she was fine and should wake up soon. He handed the maid some medicine and told the girl to take it after she woke up. When the maid suggested reporting the incident to the police, he said that there was already unrest in the city, and since nothing had been stolen from them, there was no point in adding extra work to their workload. Suddenly, his assistant entered the room, saying that there was a problem. The man reported that one hard drive had disappeared from Brian's room. The guy asked if this was the same disk that was connected to the computer and received an affirmative answer. Meanwhile, the hero was writing back with the disk in his pocket. Returning home, Ash tried to connect the stolen disk to his laptop. A few minutes later, he managed to do it. He was eager to find out what the top of the triad was planning. Finding a folder with notes on the experiment, he opened it. As he began to read the notes, he realized that they did not belong to Martin. He read with interest the information presented there, which could explain what was happening in this world. The man who wrote this was convinced that he could lead humanity to a new level of civilization. At the same time, Brian was trying to track the location of the disk, but for several hours in a row, he had not been able to do so. Ultimately, he decided that it wasn't that important, that the disk only contained outdated data, and even if the files were read, there wouldn't be much that the average person could understand. But the worry that what if that person suddenly guessed the true purpose of his arrival here did not give him peace. After reading most of the document, Ash came to the conclusion that the author's ideas coincided with his own, but he was alarmed by the line that stated that he would achieve his goal even at the cost of human lives. Suddenly, the hero realized that he was experimenting on people. The next morning, Ash bought chickens, rabbits, and piglets. Anya looked at all this living creature with eyes full of happiness. Suddenly, the system reported that a rare product had been grown: white corn. The hero had never heard of it before, so he was a little confused. He told his sister to play with the animals while he went to check the garden beds. When he arrived at the greenhouse, he immediately noticed this fruit. The system explained that it was a rare product of mutation obtained from anti-radiation corn. The guy was amazed that she could increase rage and other characteristics tenfold for 30 seconds. Having torn it off, he realized that there was only one. He searched all the beds, hoping to find a few more white fruits. Half an hour later, he gave in, realizing that finding such a rare product in a single copy was already a great success. Meanwhile, a new experiment was being conducted in the laboratory, injecting the animal with a diluted viral reagent. Before the scientist's eyes, the beast changed, acquiring body parts of other creatures, becoming a real monster. At one point, he became extremely aggressive and broke the restraining chain. The study's lead author said the experiment was a failure. Anya watched the news, which reported that a mountain of hundreds of dead, mutated animals had been found in the village of N. Ash, passing by, was surprised that his little sister was watching such serious programs instead of cartoons. She replied that she wanted to know more in order to protect her brother. The hero was glad that she had awakened a thirst for knowledge. He said that he and Paul would continue digging the pond, and if she suddenly got hungry, there was food in the refrigerator. An hour later, Anya was lying on Charlie and realized that she was really hungry. She noticed a strange box on the table. Tearing it off, she found 2 divine seeds of enhancement. But Anya, out of ignorance, mistook them for ordinary nuts and was delighted with such a find. She took them and fed one to Charlie and ate the other herself. But a second later, she spat it out because the nut had a very bitter taste. Some time later, Paul returned to the house and was shocked by what he saw. Charlie had grown greatly in size and looked like a mutated animal. The next moment, the dog rushed towards the man. Charlie was about to bite him, but Paul stood there, unable to move from shock. He reacted only at the last second, kicking the dog in the torso, causing the dog to fly off to the side. The man did not understand what caused such drastic changes. He noticed that the beast was no longer trying to attack him. Paul decided to try to calm Charlie down. He called him by name, smiling. He felt like he was reacting to his name, but the next moment he suddenly started howling. Immediately after this, Charlie jumped out into the street, breaking a window and disappeared in an unknown direction.